Welcome everybody to another QB Power Hour. I'm very glad to have you all joining us today. We're talking about creating batch transactions in desktop and online, and we have special guest Transaction Pro Importer who's going to show you some tools that are really great to help you go above and beyond what you can do within QuickBooks. My name is Michelle Long, owner of Long for Success. Very glad to have you guys joining us today. Today, I'm actually in McCall, Idaho, north of Boise. We came out here for a trip to visit my son and go skiing and have some fun. So good to be here joining you all today. You'll see there the link to our Facebook group. If you haven't joined us already, we'd love to have you on our Facebook group. It's a very active group. Lots of great conversations and resources out there. Dan, you want to go next?
Yeah, I got to update that slide because we're up to about 9,000 members on the Facebook group as well.
That's true. That's a good point.
But hello, everybody. My name is Dan DeLong. I own Danwith. We transform businesses through technology, which is why I'm really excited that T-Pro has joined us here today. Used to work at Intuit for about 18 years and just love being able to work with Michelle here. It's funny because now I'm home and she's somewhere else. So it's awesome that we can do these types of things no matter where we're at. So we have some special guests with us today. Just want to introduce yourselves, Val and Michelle.
Sure. Really glad to be here. Val Holzer, I'm the Business Development Manager at Transaction Pro.
And I'm Michelle Harris. I'm the Christmas, I don't know why. Customer Success Lead. I don't know where my mind is today. The Customer Success Lead for Transaction Pro.
Great. We're very glad to have you guys joining us. I look forward to the great info you're going to share with everybody today because your tool is amazing. Dan, you want to go ahead and go to the next one?
Yeah, so some upcoming events for the QB Power Hour just to keep everybody up to date. Next couple episodes. Our next one is going to be niche nuances. We're going to head back to that series, and we're going to talk about e-commerce and the things about e-commerce that those types of businesses have to deal with. And so we're going to have a good guest on that. And then the 31st, we're going to talk about bank feeds. So it's a real big way to automate your clients' processes with rules and the bank feeds themselves. And we'll talk about the differences between desktop and online when it comes to the bank feeds. We have our PDF link for the slides. You can access all of the slides from all of the recordings and the recordings as well. We have current and historical ones with the Go to Stage as well as YouTube and the podcast if you need to listen to us on the go. Obviously, you can't see the slides while you're on the podcast, but you get to hear our voices, so that's an awesome way. And now, I also wanted to mention that we're considering transitioning to Zoom, so just keep an eye out for that with our webinar platform. So we may need to keep you updated on that as well. Anything else you want to talk about, Michelle, with upcoming events with the road show?
Just as a reminder, after busy season, pay attention for upcoming events, hopefully in a city near you. But remember, every month there's free webinars as well as VCons probably starting up again after tax season. So, just pay attention. There's lots of training resources out there as you guys need it from Intuit. So just check those out.
Awesome. So our agenda today, we're going to be talking mostly about entering multiple transactions. So we're going to talk about, why that is, some use cases around that. And we'll talk about some of the built-in tools with desktop, and then we'll talk about some of the built-in tools with online and online advanced, and then we'll talk about the transaction. We'll hand it over to Transaction Pro, and then they'll talk about the tools that they have when you need more than what QuickBooks can do right out of the box. So let's get started with, why enter multiple transactions? One reason is just efficiency. As you're working with your clients, being able to enter in multiple transactions at the same time, especially if you have the same service for multiple people. So bookkeeping practices or gym memberships, for example, AOL, back in the day where you had the same service for multiple people, you could create multiple transactions at the same time. Maybe you have a niche software solution that just doesn't work with directly in, you need to do something specifically in that software solution, and then you got to enter that financial impact into your QuickBooks. And then also there's a value added tool and then expertise. You want the right tool for the right job. You see the hammer hammering in the screw. You want to make sure that you have the right tool for your jobs that you're doing for your clients. So let's talk a little bit about desktop. What's right out of desktop. So
hey Dan,
yeah.
Can we go ahead and launch the first poll question?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, let's see what they're using and find out how many of them are using desktop online, both or neither.
Yeah, sometimes I just get on a roll and.
Oh no, I know it's easy to do that because it's such a great topic. Because this is an area where when you learn about this stuff, you can really do some very high value, things with these tools and stuff like that. That saves significant amounts of time. So I think that's great. All right, answer our poll question if you could, just to give us a feel for who's listening and what platform you're using. Sorry, which platform you're using. And as a reminder, these poll questions are for informational purposes only. We're not doing CPE for this event today. But we do like to see where you guys are at, and then we share the results with you all as well. So I'm going to give you just a couple more seconds, and then we'll close that. So going, gone. And I'll just tell you, 20% were desktop, 30% online, and we got 56% using both. So that's a good distribution there.
Awesome. Well, let's talk a little bit about desktop first. So when I worked at Intuit, I felt like nobody recognized or even discovered this batch invoicing tool that I can't even remember when it came out, but it was probably about a good 10 years ago when batch invoicing first became available. But the idea here is that when you have the same invoice to multiple customers, you can create multiple invoices at once. So from the customers menu, there's that create batch invoices, and it brings up a little wizard. You can choose the customers. You can also create what's called a billing group, which is if you have a certain type of billing group, maybe they're monthly, or you can set it up as semi-monthly or weekly, or if they have a different type of service that you need to create multiple invoices for, you can assign that to the customer so that you can choose the billing group in the dropdown and then just choose all of those customers all in one fell swoop. And then when you do that, then it will allow you to create add the line items to the invoices. So it's again all of the same amount of the invoices that you're creating here. And then finally, it just gives you a review. And then you can create those invoices all in one fell swoop. So that's the batch invoicing, creating batch invoicing tool inside of QuickBooks. And then later on, there was a enter batch transactions, which takes it to a whole nother level. So you can create batch entering transactions. It's in Desktop Accountant Edition, as well as all versions of Enterprise. And you can create checks, deposits, bills and credits, credit card charges and credits, as well as invoices and memos. So we're going to be able to, or we provided a link there at the bottom. So if you have the slides, you'll be able to see the link, and it talks about both the entering batch invoices as well as entering the batch transactions and how to do that inside of QuickBooks Desktop. Then you have these options of importing IIF. So IIF stands for Intuit Interchange Format. It's really just a tab delimited spreadsheet. You can open it up in Excel, and when I started working at Intuit in 2000, it's the same as it is then, it is now. So it has not changed at all. But if you know what you're doing in IIFs, you can pretty much import anything that you want. And there is a link here as well to the kit. Intuit makes them available to download, and you can modify them in Excel. if you know what you're doing, you can do a lot with the IIFs. The problem with the IIFs is as long as they're in the right format, they'll get imported. So be careful what you wish for, right? Always make a backup prior to importing your IIF. But the way to get to it is File, Utilities, Import, and then choose the IIF file and then bring it in that way. But the ability to, or the resource link there at the bottom of the slide here. So if you need those, download the kit to be able to, basically create your transactions, you can start copying and pasting, right in that Excel file. And then, when you've reached the limitations of what QuickBooks will do, there's plenty of third parties, and we're going to talk about one special one here today. But there are, if you go to desktop.apps.com, that will give you can search for all sorts of other solution providers that make that available. So I'll hand it back over to Michelle. Do we want to do another poll, or did we?
Yes, yeah, that's a great idea. Let's go ahead and do another poll question and ask, which industry does your organization work with? Which industry do you all work with? Or which industry does your organization most closely align? So for many of us, we're probably professional services on here. So let us know which industry your company works with. And then I'm going to talk about you doing this stuff in QBO because somebody said, why don't we have the batch invoices in QBO? Well, I'm getting ready to show you what we have available in QBO in just a second here. And there's limitations with both desktop and online, and that's why we're going to talk more with TPI about their tool and the additional features and functionality that makes available to us. All right, so I'm going to give you a couple more seconds on this last poll question, if y'all can answer that. And yeah, Dan, I knew the IIF had been around a long time, but I didn't realize it was 20 years that we've had IIFs.
Yeah, it was probably that way ever since it started, but I don't know the history of when it started, but it has been unchanged since then.
Yep. All right, thank you all for answering that poll question. I'm going to go ahead and close it. And we have 69% of you are professional services, 6% retail, 20% others. So we had quite a few others out there. But let me go ahead and share my screen now. Did you pass the ball to me?
I did.
All right, it must be hidden behind something because I don't see to accept it.
I can see it. I can see what.
You can see my screen now?
Looks like it. Either that or I'm showing my own, but.
Well, let me just test it then. Yeah. That's my screen. Okay. So thank you. All right, so let's now talk about QuickBooks Online because Dan did a great job sharing with you desktop, but now I'm going to talk about the online option. And so first of all, we're going to talk about just doing the batch create invoices, similar but different to what Dan was talking about. So here, when we're looking at batch create invoices right here for QBO, we're looking at invoicing for unbilled time and expenses. So think about those people who have billable time and billable expenses, billable charges, reimbursable expenses. Different companies will call it different things. So when you're in QBO, all you need to do is click on that unbilled activity. Now, if you choose, you can go in the account and settings and tell it that you want it to automatically invoice for billable time and expenses. And you can set it up as a recurring invoice and have it automatically happen, like let's say every month. So let's say you had a lawyer and they have, they pay filing fees and things like that. And so they want to auto create the invoice and invoice for the billable expenses at month end. You can set it up to be totally automated. But some people don't like to do that. Some people want to review it and do it manually so they have more control on it. So I'm talking about here doing the batch invoice manually yourself, not setting up automated through the account setting. What you would do is you go into the money bar and you click on the blue box for unbilled activity. In there's going to be all your billable time, billable expenses, delayed charges, all those things are going to be sitting there waiting to be invoiced. You then can select the customers and under batch actions, click create invoice. And then it just automatically creates all 3 of those invoices with all the billable time and expenses and unbilled activity out there. It will create those for you in a click. So it does save a lot of time. You then, if you clicked on the invoices tab, would see those new invoices that were created that you just created in batch from the billable time and expenses and stuff. So you'll see them right there. And then also you can batch send invoices. So let's say people are entering invoices all day. Maybe they just batch created a bunch of invoices, but all the invoices they're marking to be sent. They're not sending them individually, because when you do it in batch, you don't want to go back in and send each one individually. If you've batch created them, you probably want to batch send them as well. So they would be marked to be sent. Then when you're ready to send them, you go under your sales and you can see where we can filter for anything that's marked to be sent later. You'll see under delivery method, it says send later. Then again, you can select those transactions, click on the batch actions button and click send transactions. So we can batch create and batch send these invoices ourselves as we need to. Now there's also a report. Let's say you say, I want to go see, what was done, when it was sent, or things like that. If you create the invoice list report, so if you go to reports and you start typing in invoice, you'll see invoice list. All you have to do is customize that report to add a column on the very end here. You'll see the sent column. So you add that column onto that report, and then you can even click on sent to see the date that it was sent, or see if it's marked to be sent. So you can see that and get a report here. Once you create this report, you probably want to customize it. And so I'm just going to pop into QuickBooks and show you all this real quickly, if I can get to QuickBooks. Here we go. So I am in the QBO Advanced company. Let me go into like Larry's Landscaping. Whoops, I did LH&M. I'm looking for those unbilled charges. So we're going in here and we're going to see if we have something, so I can just walk through it. You guys can see the process here. So under sales, let's pull that up. My internet's a little slow in this hotel, or a condo here, so I apologize for that. It doesn't normally take this long to load things. So I'm going to go under, I'm going to go under sales. I want to see my money bar here. If yours is this slow, something's wrong. It should not take that long. Oh, and of course we got no unbilled activity there. I need to get into Larry's Landscaping. But notice how quick and easy it is to switch in and out of different companies. Even with my slow internet here, when I go in and out of different client QuickBooks companies here, it's way faster than closing and opening the desktop company files. And you think about how long it takes to close a desktop company and then open a desktop company. So that's just one of the reasons that I prefer QBO now. And I don't want to start a big old debate on which is better, QBO or desktop.
Put up your dukes.
Yeah, let's get into it. Okay, so you go into your unbilled activity, and I hope this is not blocking the screen. I'm trying to move all the GoToWebinar stuff. You click on the box for unbilled activity. You would select these invoices. You'll see this is Alex Blakey, it looks like, and we've got $1,000 here. You can click batch create. Now I've only got one here, but what it's going to do is all the unbilled activity, it's going to create an invoice for that. Now I had mentioned to you that you could do this automatically, and so I'd click batch create, and then it's going to disappear. It's gone from my unbilled activity now, and it will be over here under my open invoices as outstanding. Here's that Alex Blakey for 1,000. What I had mentioned previously, though, about how you might want to set it up to do this automatically. Let's say you have an attorney, and let's say the attorney enters their time all month as a delayed charge, and then they have their billable cost and reimbursable expenses. So then at month end, you can set up recurring transactions, and you can tell it under invoicing. Let's get in here under sales and scroll down a little bit. Where's that automation?
It's under advanced.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you, Dan. Yeah, under the advanced automation here, I need to scroll up. Automation. So in here under the automation area, this is where we can talk about if we, or tell it we want it to automatically invoice our unbilled activity. You can tell it automatically create the invoice, or you can tell it remind me. So you can kind of choose what you want to do, but this is where I talked about you could do it automatically if you wanted to, versus going in and controlling it and batch creating them on your own. So that's one option for doing batch invoices, but sometimes that's not what we really need. Sometimes we actually want, and that what we just talked about was available with all versions of QBO, correct, Dan? That is Simple
Right.
Start. Yeah, that's all versions of QBO that you can batch invoice, particularly the unbilled activity and charges and stuff. What we're talking about now is batch entering transactions like invoices or expenses or bills, but this batch enter transactions that we're talking about here is only available in QBO Advanced. That's the new subscription level for Advanced, so QuickBooks Online Advanced. In here, we can do batch enter transactions for invoices, checks, expenses, and bills. When might you want to do this? This is where if you have somebody that's got a third-party system, let's say they got a point-of-sale system and it doesn't fully integrate with QuickBooks, or they've got some other third-party system that doesn't talk to QuickBooks, but they're doing all their sales over there. Well, you could batch enter the invoices. You could export them into a file possibly, and then pull them in here, or you're manually entering them into here. So we'll talk about the batch import in just a minute. This is the batch enter. So similar to what Dan was showing when you wanted to create several at once. So let's go in and take a look at this one real quickly. So I'm going to pop back into QuickBooks and go into my advanced company, because remember we need to be QBO Advanced for this. And a good example of that, you know, Dan just walked through it and he talked about how you might have like monthly or weekly or things like that. And maybe you got a homeowners or a homeowners association, and maybe some of the homeowners are charged because they have a, you know, single family versus maybe they got a double family, or maybe they got a single lot versus double lot, or whatever the situation might be. You might be invoicing different groups like Dan had mentioned, but this is where you want to invoice customers the same thing all at one time. So let's say I have 50 homeowners and I want to invoice them their homeowners dues all at once. This is where it's going to save you significant amounts of time. So under sales, I'm sorry, let me click on this. Under the plus, the quick create plus sign, not sales yet, we'll go in there later. See where it says batch transactions on that far right column? And the reason it's over there under other, because we can do invoices and expense and bills and stuff. So it applies to both the customers and the vendors. So it's under other over here, batch transactions. When you get out here, this is where it's kind of cool, but it's also kind of clunky. Like I liked some of the things in how desktop worked on this batch creating invoices. I liked some of the desktop features a little bit better, but I want to show you how it works in QBO. So let's say I'm batch entering these invoices. I would go through here and be clicking and entering this detail. You put that in there if you want. Click tab over to your terms, your due date, product and service. Whoops, tab over. And my go to webinar stuff's in the way. Let's just put hours there and select that. I'm going to skip the description. So I clicked on that. Come on, keep going, tab, tab. Let's say our rate is 85 an hour, and I could mark it send later. So you go through there and you enter one. Now let's say I want to invoice other customers for that. Over here, you can right click, if I can get on that. You click on the number or the 3 dots here. See where it says duplicate or duplicate for multiple customers. So let's say I have lots of customers. I needed to create the same invoice for 50 customers, let's say, like for their homeowners dues. When I click duplicate, I go through here, I can't choose a group. Like I can't create a billing group for, like Dan said, weekly or monthly, or for different, you know, size of homeowners association dues or whatever. I go through here though, and I can select the customers that I want to do this for. So I can add the 3 customers and then click next down in the bottom. And now I just created other invoices for those other ones. You can see here, whoops, I duplicated because I included the first one I already had. You can go in there and delete an invoice if you've got something wrong. You can click on it and duplicate just that one invoice for one other customer or something. You can create a new or add a new line. So this is somewhat useful when you're doing batch invoicing, but I like the feature in desktop where you can create groups of customers and say, okay, I want to invoice all of my monthly customers. I want to invoice all my weekly customers. In here, you have to go through and select them one at a time and add them to what you want to do. So it's a little clunky in that, but I tell people, remember, it's a V1, Intuit's still working on it. So I could save this and come back to it later. But Intuit is working on it, so we need to send our feedback and let Intuit know what we like, or what we want done differently and things like that. So let me pop back over to my slides and make sure that I'm covering everything. Whoops, not that.
Yeah, and they with those new features that they put out, the feedback is prominent right there on the feature itself. So those are always that's a good way to get your voice heard.
Yes, yes. Okay, so now that was one option where we're creating a batch invoice. Now, this is another idea that you might need to do, is when they've got the invoices from a third-party system where they've entered them over here, and we want to import these invoices. So Dan talked about importing transactions, and he talked about importing with an IIF. Here we're importing with a CSV. All three of those files, an IIF, a CSV, can all be opened in an Excel file. So if you'll learn here, if you'll notice here where it says download sample CSV, start with a template. I recommend you download that sample CSV, you open that up in Excel, and then you can see the order that the columns need to be in and things like that. So you can try to help match that template there. And then you select to upload your CSV file, so save it as a CSV, open it in Excel, work with it, and then save it as a CSV. And then notice this box here, add new customers to QuickBooks. You'll want to check that box if you want it to create a new customer based on the invoices that you are importing. And here's a link to that guide to help you. You can see where it says download import guide. Whoops, right here, download import guide. That will help you to make sure you got everything mapped properly and in the right formats. If something's wrong, it will give you an error message and say your date is in the wrong format or you're missing this required field. So it will give you errors when you go to import for things that are missing. But once you select your file, then you're going to come in here and you map the columns from your QuickBooks file to that CSV or that Excel file. You'll want to map those there so QuickBooks knows how to import these things to the proper fields for you. So you go through and you do that mapping, and then you can import those all at once. So let me go ahead and show you this and talk to you about this for a minute. Excuse me. Okay, so when we want to import data, we want to go through the gear or this menu up here to get into our additional stuff. Right now it's not showing the gear, it's showing the three little dots here. But out there, you're going to click on that and you're going to come under the tools column. You're going to click on import data. Now remember, this is only available with QBO Advanced. With the other versions of QuickBooks Online, you can import your bank data, your customers, your vendors, chart of accounts, products and services, but you cannot import invoices unless you have QBO Advanced. And that's what I'm showing you right here is the Advanced. So this is where we want to import our invoices. So as I mentioned, download this guide, check it out, download a sample CSV, and then when you're ready, save your file as a CSV. I've saved one out here. Hopefully I can find it again quick and easy. Yep, sales. So let's click on sales. I want to tell add new customers in QuickBooks and click next. Then this is where it says, all right, you have to go through and do these mappings. So you come through here and you choose the columns that are in your file. What am I picking here? Due date. You're going to choose the columns and do the mapping between the QuickBooks fields and the file that you're importing. The item amount looks like we want, let's scroll down. I'm not seeing it down there. Hold on, it's not going down.
Probably below your.
Yeah, there, yeah, it was below what I could see. All right, so you go through and you do those mappings and then you click next and it's going to tell you what's going to happen. So right here, if I had any mistakes, it will tell me and it will show you what it is and it gives you hints on what you need to do to fix it. So I really like that. I think that's great. And then I can click start import and it's going to import those invoices for me. All right, so you can do that and it created 9 new invoices. I could click here and go in and take a look at them. So you can batch import invoices. You also can batch. The other thing I forgot to mention earlier when we were talking about batch creating, when you come over here under batch creating transactions, I wanted to point this out to you is, let's get it up here. When you're out here and you're entering these things and doing all this, one of the things that I wanted you to notice, let's just click on a line here. Under the options, see how you can customize and add some additional fields, but we're missing a lot of fields. All right, so we can't include any attachments or any price rules, deposits, a bundle, a discount, or multi-currency. So we're missing a few features when we're doing the batch enter transactions. You can click over here and do a batch enter of checks or a batch enter of bills or expenses, but it's kind of clunky because the way it's set up and stuff. So like I could come out here and like if I'm entering batch enter bills, these aren't things that you typically are doing in batch where you'd want to like duplicate the bill or things like that. That doesn't happen a lot. If it, you know, if it's helpful for you, that's great. But just remember, you do have some limitations with this batch enter field, but some of the fields are not available. And it's kind of clunky in some senses, and you can't create some groups. So even though we can do some of these in desktop and online, it's not always everything we need. A lot of times it's kind of the basic level. We need more functionality, we need more capabilities, and we need to do more. And so that's where we look for a third-party app such as Transaction Pro, or a third-party tool such as Transaction Pro. And they have several different tools, but today they're going to be talking specifically about Transaction Pro Importer and importing those transactions. Let me see, I think we have a poll question, and then I'll pass the ball. What is your familiarity? Oh, shit. I apologize for that, and I apologize for the bad language. Y'all didn't hear that. Y'all didn't hear that.
We'll bleep that out in post.
Guess what I did? Do you ever get click happy? I clicked launch and close right back to back. So I got click happy and I closed the poll. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and pass the presenter over to Val. And Val, while you're talking, I'll go fix and create another poll question, and we can launch in a few minutes, okay?
That sounds wonderful. Let me make sure we're seeing the appropriate screens here. All right. Does that look okay to everybody?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, well, again, super excited to be here. We did intros quickly at the top of the call, but to get a little bit more granular in terms of roles on Michelle and I, who are both on the call today, and what we do from the Transaction Pro team. I work specifically with our business partners, our affiliates. And Michelle leads our customer success org in our support organizations. She is an accountant of 20 years, super knowledge on QuickBooks and very tech savvy when it comes to Transaction Pro. So if you're reading between the lines, Michelle is the brains of the outfit here today. And she's sort of manning the chat now, but we'll be providing a demo here shortly. And I'm going to tee that up with some general information on Transaction Pro. So as we've gathered, what is Transaction Pro? Well, it's a third-party app to use and supplement to QuickBooks as a tool to eliminate manual data entry and reduce errors when importing lists and transactions into QuickBooks. So why Transaction Pro? Where's the value to yourself? Or if you're doing something on behalf of your clients, where's the value there? The obvious is that this is going to be a time saver, right? Because we're taking what's typically a manual process when it comes to doing data entry into QuickBooks. That can potentially be, you know, several hours in nature when we're talking about time commitment. And now we're able to take that down to just several minutes when using Transaction Pro. With that time savings, now we're giving you back the ability to go and do something else with your time, another task that you're hired to do, potentially a revenue generating task, right? Where you can also turn this into money or dollar savings as well. With T-Pro, we also see an increase in accuracy. When we're removing a human being from doing that manual data entry, we're going to see a decrease in errors and thus an increase in accuracy. In a bit of a sort of history lesson on Transaction Pro, we were acquired a few years ago by Right Networks. So very excited to be under the umbrella of Right Networks. But we've been around the block for some time before that, dating back to the early 2000s. And we've always had a very close relationship with pro advisors, with QSPs. Many of these individuals are affiliates of Transaction Pro and have been for some time. They love T-Pro because of the value props that we just talked about and what we do for their clients. And we love them, of course, because they help us grow our business. And I tell you that because this product, Transaction Pro, has already received this stamp of approval, if you will, by your peers, by those intensive QuickBooks users. So.
And I can vouch for that from the Intuit perspective. You know, I didn't know there were other solutions available because so many people used Transaction Pro. That was like the top recommended there from a call-in perspective.
Well, there you go. There you have it. Thank you, Dan. This slide is rather wordy, but it's very informational in terms of if you're sitting there thinking, well, you know, what can I do with Transaction Pro? How can I use it for imports, specific import types? You can see it here, broken out into columns. What are the supported transaction types, right? Are we doing journal entries or invoices that we're wanting to import, etc.? Supported list types listed as well here. And then the third column is going to show you our supported file types. So Transaction Pro, by the way, it only works with QuickBooks. And we have a product for both QuickBooks Desktop and QuickBooks Online. So we've broken out the content on the slide to show you the supported file types according to the importer for desktop and the importer for QBO, because there's a slight variance. So starting with the importer for QB Desktop, Excel, CSV, TXT, Microsoft's Access Database, and the SQL Data Source or DSN file. For the importer for QBO, Excel and CSV. And then, as Michelle and Dan have sort of alluded to, we have a suite of products at Transaction Pro. The importer is by far our most commonly used product. But we also have an exporter that is very, very popular. So the ability to export data out of QuickBooks. And so we've given here the supported file types for each of the exporter for desktop and online products as well. So specific use cases, you might be sitting there thinking, hey, I've got a project that I know I can use Transaction Pro for. Let me also highlight for you some common use cases that we see our customers coming to Transaction Pro and looking for assistance with. Top of the list, we have lots and lots of people knocking on our door for help with data migration projects. So yes, we can help. This works so wonderfully with the combination of that Transaction Pro exporter that I mentioned, as well as the importer. So using the exporter to get the data out of the old file, and then the importer to get the data into the new file. That can work for a QBDT to QBO migration, QBO to QBO, QBDT to QBDT, whatever the combination, we can help. And we have some really good support articles that I can at least allude to and get you some point you in the right direction of when we talk about our support resources here in a few minutes. Some additional use cases: importing data from a POS system, importing bills or expense reimbursements, importing data from a third-party payroll provider, and importing data from a time clock. As I said, we work only with QuickBooks, but if there's some sort of third-party system that you are looking to get data out of, and as long as you're getting that data into one of our compatible formats that we just mentioned in that last slide, we can help you get that data into QuickBooks. So that is a good stopping point for a demo. We talked about it, now let's see it. I want to turn the ball over to Michelle Harris from Transaction Pro.
And I tell you what, Val, thank you very much. Let me go ahead and launch that poll and not get click happy. What is your familiarity with Transaction Pro? I'm a current user. I've used Transaction Pro in the past. I'm familiar with Transaction Pro, but I've never used and I've never heard of Transaction Pro. And I'm just going to add this quick as we pass it over to Michelle for her turn. that I think this is an incredible tool, and it's a great area for us as accounting professionals to learn about this tool and then provide these very valuable services to our clients when they have problems. You know, how do I get this data out of here and into this new company? How do I convert? How do I do this? All those use cases that they were talking about. Once you learn how to use this tool, you can really do some high value projects and work for clients and stuff. So I think it's awesome, and I'm very glad you guys are joining us today to help people learn more about this. So I'm going to give you a couple. Go ahead, Dan.
Oh, there's from my perspective of hearing the calls and calls coming in, it was always you know, I've got X and I want to send it to Y, you know, and my answer was, if you can get it to Excel, you can pretty much use one of these tools. And because this was the most common one, that would be the one that I would talk about. But yeah, if you can get it out in some kind of a supported format, then you can utilize these the bridge between the two, because you know, something right out of the box, you know, like Quicken to, you know, was a Quicken to QuickBooks Online. I mean, it was a horrible multi-step process. But yeah, if you could get it to Excel, then you could get it right in and skip over a lot of those steps that you would need. But I wouldn't want to be taking Quicken to QuickBooks Online anyway, but that's another story.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and close this poll question. Thank you guys for answering. And the good news is that a lot of you are not very familiar with Transaction Pro, so I'm really glad Michelle's going to go through and do a demo for us now. So Michelle, you should have the ball and be able to share your screen.
Okay, are you all seeing it, or?
It's coming up.
It's coming up. Yep.
Apparently, you're not the only one with slow internet today. So.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's ever so slowly trying to come up.
Yeah, I usually don't have problems, but of course today I would. So.
You know, why don't you click on the show screen again one time and just see if that'll like start it again? Like kind of stop sharing your screen and then click show the screen again.
Yeah, that's what I just did. It keeps saying it's 100% viewed, but.
Well, it's all black is all we're seeing. We can see your icon bar at the bottom, but the screen itself is all black. Oh, there we're coming. Now we're seeing your company, but can you close the GoToWebinar toolbar because it's hiding things?
Okay, yeah. Well, if it will let me. There you go.
Orange arrow in the upper left corner.
I got it. So are you all seeing my screen now?
Yes.
Now we are. Yeah.
Okay, great. Sorry about that. So it never fails that you have technical problems when you don't need them to happen. Okay, what we're going to look at first is QuickBooks Online, and then I'm going to give you kind of a brief view of QuickBooks Desktop, but overall they work very similarly. Transaction Pro for QuickBooks Online does work with all versions of QuickBooks Online, with the exception of the self-employment. It does not work with the self-employment version, but it does work with Essentials, Simple Start, Plus, and the Advanced. This is when you first go to our website. It's importer.transactionpro.com. The first thing it's going to do is ask you to sign in with Intuit. We do use your Intuit login information. Therefore, you're not having to set up an additional email and password to remember. And if you are the administrator of the account, you can log in directly from the App Center within QuickBooks Online, but only the administrator of the account can do that. All the other participant users have to go to our site, importer.transactionpro.com. And I guess because I was logged in earlier, normally it would ask for your login information. So it's kind of skipped that step because I was logged in just a few minutes ago. But it will list, if you have multiple subscriptions, it will list them. Today, we're going to use Ned's Computer Services. Ned was originally, at one point, was our mascot. He stands for Never Enter Data. So I tend to still use Ned sometimes. And from the screen, once you select your company, you can access all the different applications to which you have access to. All our online subscriptions do include importer and exporter, but their higher ones also include deleter for you as well. Okay, we're going to go to import. And on the first screen, boy, my internet is being slow today. So on the first screen, you are going to see these are all the different import types that Val had mentioned that we can import in. I also want to give you everybody a heads up if you're a current user of Transaction Pro or you're going to be looking at Transaction Pro, we are actually releasing a new UI user interface for Transaction Pro for our online version, hopefully tomorrow. It actually was supposed to be released last week, so I was hoping we were going to have it. The flow is going to be the same. The concept's the same. It's just going to look a little different. We're trying to make it where there's less on each screen, so it's not as much information, so it's more clear about what the next steps and everything are. The big change is this menu is going to move from here to across the top and kind of have a flow to it. Okay, for today, we're going to talk about, we've been talking about invoices a lot. So I'm going to use invoices as my, boy, I'm getting tongue-tied today, as my sample to show you how to import. The next screen, you're going to click to connect your file. It does list TXT there right now, but TXT, it will only use a TXT file if it is in a comma delimited form. So I tend to tell everybody just use Excel or CSV. You can attach multiple files. If you had more than one file that you want to import in, you can attach them. The limits that we have are 4 megs. The file cannot be larger than 4 megs, or it cannot have more than 5,000 rows of data. So those are the 2 limits that you have when you're using our importer for online. Once you've attached your files, click select the file. If you are doing Excel, it is going to show you every worksheet that you have in your Excel. If you have multiple files, it will show you both files or however many files you've attached. What I'm using today is actually our sample file, which you can find on our knowledge base to download, and it has a sample layout for every single import type we do. So it's very handy. And I apologize, I thought I turned my reminders off. So we're going to click on invoices because that's the sheet we want to do. And then that's going to bring us to our mapping. This is just like Michelle was showing you within QBO, the concept's the same. You're going to map which column in your import file goes to which field in QuickBooks. Now, if you do not know like what we're saying, reference number, what it's referring to, there is a view QuickBooks name link over here, and you can see that the reference number is referring to the invoice number. So there is a translation. Some people get confused with the TXN date. That's the invoice date. So there is the information, the translation here if it doesn't click right away. One benefit if you are using our sample file and layouts is you can very quickly click auto match and it's going to match up the names because they're exactly the same. However, that is not required. That is one of the benefits of Transaction Pro is it is very flexible. You can have the columns in any order. You can have the columns in any names. Now, our online product does require column headers, but our desktop does not. So with desktop, you don't even have to have column names there. You can also assign a default value. So I was kind of, let's get down here to the item. I was kind of inspired by Michelle talking about homeowner fees. So I actually went out and set up an item called homeowner fees. Or maybe I call it dues. We're going to find out in a minute what I called it. So for example, like she was using with the homeowners, if you had a list of all your customers in Excel, you can import them in and just assign the customers. And then that's going to allow you to create multiple invoices because you can add a default value here of homeowner fees. So you can say, you know, it's homeowners, it's one. If you already got it set up, you don't even have to bring in the prices. So the only fields that are required are the ones with an asterisk. One thing to keep in mind, and we don't know why not, when you're doing invoices, for some reason, line item, it is required. Common sense, if you enter an invoice in QBO, then it's going to be, I don't know why I keep looking at my mic. Sorry about that. But anyway, there should be an asterisk here. For some reason, it will not save. So it's the same common sense as if you're entering invoices in QuickBooks directly. Now, another thing is to keep in mind is that some fields become required based on what your selection is. So like if my line item type is an inventory type, then quantity becomes required. You have to tell it what quantity. Now, homeowner fees I set up as a service item, so quantity is not required. For us, the date is not required, but that's one thing to watch. If you do not import a date, it will automatically assign the date that you run the import. So if I ran it today, it's going to assign 3/3 to all these invoices. Now, stuff like due date, the shipping information, the billing address, if these are customers that are already set up in QuickBooks, it will automatically pull this information to your customers, and therefore you will not have to import it in. So if your customers are set up, then you're good. You don't need to worry about bringing in the address unless there's changes or something you want to do something different. Once you have your maps, I just lost what I was going to say. Once you have your map set up, you can save it. So that way you will not have to recreate it the next time you import in the same file. You just click Save Mapping Options, give it a name. I put QBO. Let's see. Okay, I can't type. So QBO Power Hour. So the next time I come in here, I can select from my drop down of all my different maps I've created and pick the one that goes with my file. So as long as my file type has not changed, as far as the column headers haven't changed, you haven't deleted the column you have originally imported or importing, then this map will continue to work for your import files in the future for that one. Once we have it, we're going to click Preview and Import. It does give you a chance to see exactly how your data is lining up. You can unselect if for some reason you don't want to select, you don't want to import in that specific invoice for some reason. You can make changes in this import file if you want, directly just like you're in Excel. But the one thing to keep in mind, this is not changing your file. This is only changing your import. Because once you attach that file, it takes a snapshot of it. It collects the data and locks it as it is at that point. So once you have uploaded your file, if you make any changes to it, then you will want to go back and reattach that file, so that way Transaction Pro will recognize those changes. We scroll over here, we're going to look at the item. You see it applied homeowner fees. Now this file was originally set up to have multiple, as you can see, multiple items here. So it's given multiple lines of homeowner fees. But I do want to show you real quick, if you have errors in it, what they're going to look like, just so you can recognize. I'm going to purposely give it a non-date value. And we also have options. By default, it will automatically set up a new customer if that customer does not already exist in QuickBooks. But you have the ability with our options to tell it to do not add those new customers to your account. So it will let you know if it cannot find that customer within QBO. Once you have your file exactly how you want it, you're going to click Import. And it is going to pop up and let you know that there's errors. Whenever you get an error in QBO, please be sure to always click on the box. It will either be red or yellow, because that is going to tell you what the exact error message is. So this tells me my date's incorrect. So I'll choose a new date and click Import again. Now this time it should tell me that QB Power Hour does not exist. Well, it's telling me all kinds of stuff. Duplicate numbers, it's not letting me bring it in, and it's letting me know that QBO Power Hour doesn't exist. So what I'm going to do, so I can show you an import real quick. You can tell I use this sample file quite often. So I'm just going to bring in Leonard Walker. And we import him in. I gave it a new number that I hope I have not used before. And it shows me that it did successfully import it in. So now if we go over here to QBO, there is the import that it brought in. I'm not used to my internet being this slow. We're having a very rainy day where I'm at today, so that may be affecting my internet. And hopefully I didn't just jinx it and my internet's going to go out. But as you can see, here's Leonard Walker's invoice. Of course, I didn't bring in an amount. I hadn't set up amount, but it brought in the homeowner fees. This was a very quick demo because I know this is your lunch hour, so we want to make sure we can get as much info to you as we can. Desktop works very similarly. Our desktop now has let me bring, so we have that behind it. With our version 8, we have this new launcher. So I wanted to show everybody that hadn't had a chance to see this, that's still maybe using version 6 or version 7. With our version 8, you will see a new launcher. So if you have purchased multiple products, you will have that same easy access to all 3 of them from one single icon, which is very nice. But other than that, the concept of desktop is really similar. We do have a full demo of both our desktop product and our online product on our YouTube channel. So it goes into the same import that I just did with invoices in a bit more detail. But with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Val.
Okay.
Okay.
So I think we're going to send the control to Dan, or you're doing the end of the
Yes.
slide? Gotcha. Okay.
Dan, if you could toggle over to the pricing slides, I'll cover that next here.
And while he's doing that, I do have a question here. Somebody says, how do we upgrade from desktop 7 to 8?
It is a separate purchase. It is a total separate install. But your maps from version 7 will come over to version 8, so you won't have to recreate your maps. Just make sure that you do look at where you save those .dat files. But if you have any issues with it, definitely reach out to support@transactionpro.com and we can help you with it, with the upgrade.
Okay, Val, looks like we're ready for you.
Perfect. Okay, and I know we're coming up to the end of the hour here, but we've broken down pricing for the Transaction Pro for QBO product and the Transaction Pro for QBDT product. And so here we're looking at QBO for Transaction Pro broken into 3 tiers. This, by the way, is just a screenshot of pricing from our website. So you can jump on to transactionpro.com and get this same information. I noticed we had some questions coming into chat about pricing as well as support options. So this is going to be a great slide to get answers to those questions. Our lowest level tier starts at $10 per month or $100 annually. All of our online subscriptions are offered at both a monthly and annual price points. Great value for that $10 a month plan. Be aware there's a capped limit for imports. It's 200 rows of data per month on our lowest level tier. So if you think you're going to have needs greater than that, make sure to consider our middle level or top tier here. Again, as you go up in price, you're going to see that you get additional access to the importer, the exporter, and the deleter. That's what we're calling our bundle. So for our middle tier, that $250 annual or $400 annual price options, you get access to all 3 Transaction Pro products. We haven't talked about the deleter yet. That's the ability to batch delete transactions and lists. So those are available with our higher level tiers here. With the middle and top tier, there is going to be an unlimited ability for record, import, export, and delete. And then at the very bottom, you can see the support options depending on the subscription that you opt into.
And Val, these subscriptions, so let's say I'm the Pro Advisor and I buy the subscription, I then can use Transaction Pro on a number of different clients and companies. Is that correct?
For QBO, is that what you're saying?
Yes, or desktop.
So
or is it a per company charge?
For QuickBooks Online, it's a per company. So you think ratio of Transaction Pro to QBO company is 1-to-1. We're working on that at Transaction Pro. We'll have some more information to share later on in the year about some advancements with our technology. But for now, ratio 1-to-1. When we talk about the desktop product, which we're looking at here now, this is going to be, you can see unlimited company files to answer your question, Michelle. Pricing structured differently for the desktop product as well. You can see it's offered in 2 tiers, one for our importer only products, as well as our importer exporter deleter bundle. So $1.99 for the importer only, $2.99 for the bundle products. This is a one-time fee. I'll say it again, one-time fee, not annual. Super great deal there, in my opinion. Again, if you are interested in support options, you'll see that at the very bottom of each plan listed here.
Wonderful. And so, Val, here's a good question for you. And this is a great example of the possibilities of what we can do with your tools. So Kenneth says, we have a potential engagement to merge 37 QuickBooks Online files into one file using locations. Would Transaction Pro be able to help with that?
I'm gonna defer to our resident experts.
Michelle?
Yeah. Kenneth, I was actually about to answer you as Michelle brought it up, so you saved me some typing. Yes, we can definitely assist you. We work with companies that do that are taking multiple QuickBooks company files and merging them into one. Since you're using QBO, it will require a subscription for each of those 37 QBO companies, but we do have quantity discounts for anyone that's requiring 5 or more subscriptions, so definitely reach out to us. And the subscriptions can be month to month. So if these are QuickBooks files that you're no longer to be using afterwards, then you can subscribe to them each for a month and then cancel after that month. So that will help you as well. But yes, we can definitely help you. Reach out to, again, support@transactionpro.com, and we can help you with that.
Wonderful. And the other thing that I just love about this is, so many times our clients have used QuickBooks Desktop, and those of you that have a hard stop, if you need to get off, we thank you very much for joining us. Watch for the resources in a follow-up email, and we'll put a page out on QB Power Hour website. So those of you that have to jump off, that's great, but Val and Michelle have graciously said they could stay for a few more minutes to go over a few more questions that we have for people. So if you've got time, hang out with us for a few more minutes. But what I was trying to say is, the desktop files, clients have used them forever. 15, 20 years they've been using desktop, and the company's a mess. And so we may not want to convert from desktop to QuickBooks Online. And so what we can do is we can put in our opening balances and open transactions. We can use a tool like Transaction Pro Importer to take, let's say, the transactions from the last year and import those into QBO or something like that. Or maybe they were using another system. So there's just a lot of scenarios where we want to import or delete these transactions and remove some. Maybe you imported to the wrong company. You might need to use that Transaction Pro deleter to go through and do a batch delete and stuff. So a lot of use cases for us throughout, our endeavors with clients and stuff. So another question for one of you two, does Transaction Pro work with an accountant's copy in desktop? And Michelle, I think I know the answer to this, but we'll see. So if you import those transactions in an accountant's copy, when you send them back, they would go back along with whatever the accountant's copy criteria is. So new transactions would go back with that accountant's copy. Is that correct, Michelle?
That's exactly correct. Yes, we work great. That's what I use all the time is my accountant copy when I'm doing all my testing and everything, just to make sure there never are any weird stuff that come up for accountants. But yes, we work great. And yes, that would go right back to them when you send them back their file.
Well, and another thing, Michelle, in QBO, I pointed out that there were some limitations and that when we were doing the batch enter invoices, we couldn't do multiple currency. And so Sam wants to know, can you do multiple currency and import foreign currency invoices or foreign currency payments with Transaction Pro Importer?
Yes, we do handle multiple currencies. We also work with every version of every version of QBO. So whether you're UK or Singapore or Australia, we have customers all over. And we do work with all the foreign currencies as well.
Great. Dan, you got any questions for him?
Yeah, so one of my things that I've discovered is the connection between transactions. So like a bill connected to a bill payment or an invoice to a payment. How does that, what is the connecting, since you're doing transactions one type at a time, how does that work with Transaction Pro?
And with Transaction Pro for the bill and bill payments, we're using that bill number as the connector. Same thing with the invoice to do receive payments. You're using that invoice number as the connector. You do, of course, have the option with receive payments to just apply it to account or auto apply it to the oldest invoice. But if you want it to a specific invoice, you use that invoice number. That's part of your import.
And one thing that I really liked about what you were demonstrating is that once you have it imported into the importer, but not yet into QBO, it really functions like Excel. So if you don't have a bill number on the bill, for example, you can then utilize that during the importing process. You can then create it.
Exactly. Yes.
And Val, can you tell us more about your affiliate program? I think, Dan, I think there's a slide for that.
There is. It's the next slide in the deck, Dan, if you're able to just toggle over. But yes, we look at that. We do have a Transaction Pro affiliate program, and we would love everyone on the call to join. It's free to join. It is a tiered program, so the more you refer your clients to purchase Transaction Pro, the more you earn in terms of a bonus back to you on each of your client sales. So definitely go out and check it out. There's more details on our webpage at transactionpro.com/affiliates. You can reach out to me directly, vholzer@rightnetworks.com. But it's a great program, and we have had a lot of good feedback from it since launching it last year. And some support resources. I'll cover these because I think we had a few questions come in relative to what types of support we have. Any questions that you have, reach out to support@transactionpro.com. That's Michelle's team, so we can get questions answered there. We do have expert services available for purchase, so if you have the need or the desire to really sit down and do more of a screen share session, we have options available for purchase. The knowledge base, I had mentioned when we talked about data migration, specific articles to assist with data migration. Those are articles within our knowledge base, but we have tons and tons of other articles as well to describe and help you understand how to do specific import types and other things. So I cannot emphasize enough how great this knowledge base is. Please go visit it. We have a forum. We have a blog for ins and outs of Transaction Pro. We have a newsletter that we'd love for you to join so you can get sort of the monthly tips and tricks that we've put out for T-Pro. YouTube videos, so just a lot of resources here. Again, similar to what I talked about with our pricing, this is a screenshot of a page that exists on our website, so it's kind of your one-stop shop to get to where you need to go for support relative to Transaction Pro.
Wonderful. And Val, one of the questions we had earlier is, what is the general turnaround time to get assistance with the software?
I will let Michelle give her speak on that since it's relative to her team, but it does vary depending on the package that you've opted into.
As of right now, sorry, I was answering a question. Our support hours right now are 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Monday through Friday. However, we are hoping by second quarter that we are going to be able to extend those from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to give a wider range for our customers on the West Coast and our international customers. We generally, during those business hours, we try to get to you in no more than 4 hours. We generally try to stay near 2. If you want to have guaranteed 2 hour, we do have priority support that is included with our top online package or can be purchased separately for desktop. But in general, if you're emailing us during business hours, at the most, you're going to have to wait is 4 hours. And again, we're trying to get that down lower and lower as we continue to expand the team.
Wonderful. Well, I'll tell you, I think you all have such amazing tools for us as accounting professionals. And again, I think it's a great, worthwhile investment of our time and energy to learn how to use these tools, because the possibilities for the types of jobs and engagements and projects that we can do for our clients are just huge. And again, these are high value services that we can offer for our clients. So you definitely don't want to be charging hourly for this stuff. It's high value type of things that we can be doing. Dan, any final comments?
No, I think this was an awesome introduction for a lot of folks to to see what tools are actually out there. Again, you know, the main thing, main takeaway for me is that if you can get it into Excel, then using a tool like this, you can then the options are really endless with regards to what you can do with it after the fact.
Yeah. Val or Michelle, any last minute comments?
I don't think that we have anything. Ooh, you know what though? For attendees of this call, we do have a promo code for
Yeah.
those that would like to jump off in. If you're looking to purchase Transaction Pro, it does have an expiration date. I'm going to pop it into chat here. Can I think I'm on someone's question. Michelle, are you more familiar with how to just generally send a response out, or we pop the promo code in without? I think I'm answering a question when I tried to.
Yeah, what is the promo code?
So it's all caps, QB Power Hour, and the hour is HR, not the full word hour.
So QB Power HR for hour.
Yes.
And all caps.
Now this
All
is
right.
good for 10% off our desktop plan. So either the importer or bundle for the desktop, or any of our online annual plans, and that's going to be good until March 13th.
I also want to throw out right quick, if you've ever got a file or a type of import that you're just curious if Transaction Pro can handle, we're definitely willing to take a look at your files. A lot of times we'll have someone send us a file that says, I'm sure you can import it. You'd be surprised, especially with desktop. We have a little more flexibility with desktop, but give us a try. Like I said, send it to support@transactionpro.com, send us copy your file, and just ask if it can be imported, if we can use Transaction Pro.
I think we have a final poll, right? And we had one on the, or did you close them all? Oh,
I don't think we had the did you learn anything?
no, it was what's the next steps? So if you just want to throw in the question box, you know, like what is your what's your next step with Transaction Pro? Do you want to find out more about the product, or do you want to find out more about the affiliate program? Something like anything like that. What's your next step with Transaction Pro? Even not interested.
Yeah, just type that in the questions box, everyone. Yeah, I apologize, Dan. I don't see that there. So, but we will be having a follow-up with you all that will to the attendees and registrants with the link to the recording, and we are also going to post some stuff on our Facebook or on our QB Power Hour website. We will have a page for Transaction Pro Importer with some links to some of their resources and some things like that. But if you're interested and you want them to follow up with you, go ahead and please just type "I'm interested." Contact me, call me, whatever, and we will share that information with Val and Michelle and have their team follow up with you as well. One more question on that discount. Is that for online or only desktop?
It's for online for our annual plans only. For desktop, either plan. We just have the one-time fee plan. So desktop or online.
Okay.
Cool.
Yep. All right. Wonderful.
And again, it expires March 13th of 2020.
Okay, so they have a couple weeks, 10 days, maybe 10 days.
That's it.
All right, well, thank you, Val and Michelle and Dan. It's been wonderful, and thank you all for joining us today. And we will see you all in the Facebook group, and hope everybody has a great day. Bye, everybody.
Thanks for joining us today. Bye-bye.